The Giants got a significant portion of their offseason work done prior to the lockout. They brought back Brandon Belt, Anthony DeSclafani, Alex Wood, signed Alex Cobb. But what happens next? When the lockout ends, the Giants still have a lot of work to do. So where do they stand and what are they going to do whenever this lockout ends? We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes actually 3 days a week for now until the lockout ends, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already. And coming up on today's show, I got to thinking about this as I was reading this article in The Athletic by Ken Rosenthal and Jason Stark. They interviewed agents and front office personnel talking about what is going to happen when the lockout concludes. And it's worth noting, I don't think that that's necessarily particularly close. What we do know is that the league is going to make a proposal on Saturday, the 12th of February, in New York to the players, in which they're expected to make some serious concessions. And it's a big turning point. If there's momentum after these meetings, then I turn optimistic. But if the players come away from this proposal grumbling and saying that it wasn't actually significant movement in the players' direction, then we're in for a long winter, a long continued winter, as we are 70 plus days into the lockout already. But let's talk about, okay, let's say an agreement is reached. It's going to be a frenzy because spring training will likely have been pushed back, so it may be condensed a little bit. Normally it's 6 weeks, and it might be about 4 weeks is what we're hearing when the lockout ends. And so you got 4 weeks for every team to finish out all their rosters, all free agent signings and trades, and there's the arbitration process to go through, so a lot will have to go down. For the San Francisco Giants, they entered the offseason with a ton of cash and a ton to do, and they got a lot of it done. I mean, they brought back Brandon Belt, Alex Wood, Anthony DeSclafani, and Alex Cobb. They had a lot of openings in that starting rotation, and as it is now, they don't really. Their rotation figures to be Logan Webb at the top, and then Kevin Gausman is gone, obviously. So then some combination of DeSclafani, Wood, and Alex Cobb, followed by Tyler Beede in the projected rotation. I'm putting him in there because he's out of minor league options, and so something's got to give. They can't have him in the minor leagues unless they DFA him and he clears waivers. But I would imagine he would be claimed if he was put on waivers. So anyway, to me, DeSclafani, Wood, and Cobb are mid-rotation type of starters, and you don't necessarily want them at the top like that. And so I still see the Giants as needing to add. And if you add one more starter, I think that one more guy who just definitely projects to jump into that starting rotation, I do believe that would be sufficient for guys to project into the starting rotation. Otherwise, they're going to need depth beyond that, of course. But I do think there's work to do is what I'm trying to say. And there's really not that many options left in free agency. The best of the bunch are Carlos Rodón and Clayton Kershaw, both of whom have serious injury concerns. I like Carlos Rodón. I think that you're potentially looking at a bargain type of deal given the injury risk, but the injury risk is real. And the fact that the White Sox didn't even put a qualifying offer on Rodón is alarming because of the type of season he had when he was healthy. Clayton Kershaw is just not going to happen. I just can't. I mean, hey, you never know, but A, there's big injury concern right now, and B, come on, it's Clayton Kershaw. Is he going to sign with the Giants? how would that affect his Dodgers legacy? Why would he do that? I just don't see that as a real possibility. And then beyond that, it's pretty darn thin in free agency. Danny Duffy has some intrigue to me. Kwang Hyun Kim, didn't he return to Asia, or am I thinking of somebody else? And Yusei Kikuchi, Zach Greinke, it's pretty thin, and I'm kind of not on board with the Greinke idea. Dude is throwing like 88. I just don't know that he's exactly the type of arm that is going to interest the Giants at this stage of his career. He's kind of a Johnny Cueto type to me at this point. Maybe I'm misevaluating him, but that's kind of how I see him. I just don't know that that's the greatest possibility. But trades remain a distinct possibility, and we've talked about this a lot all offseason. But there's a lot of starters out there who could be had in a trade. I look to the Cincinnati Reds and the fact that they've got Sonny Gray, they've got Luis Castillo, and they've got Tyler Mahle all under contract for 2022. Sonny Gray is entering the final year of his deal with the Reds. There is a $12.5 million club option for 2023, and it looks to me like there's no buyout on that club option. There has to be a buyout, right? Or maybe there's not. Regardless, it wouldn't be all that much, evidently. So it is kind of a 2-year deal, and then Luis Castillo and Tyler Mahle both have 2 years left via the arbitration process. And so all three of those starters are attractive and make realistic sense. And then turning across the bay, the A's have Sean Manaea entering the last year of his deal, Chris Bassitt entering the last year, and I say of his deal, but they have 1 year of arbitration remaining. And then there's Frankie Montas, who's got 2 years of arbitration, counting this year, remaining. And both of those teams are a little bit in sell mode and are trying to shed some payroll. So I think that those are real possibilities, and we've talked about the possibility that the Giants could take on some money. I think it makes more sense with the Reds. Take on part of Mike Moustakas' contract, Shogo Akiyama's contract, in order to kind of buy a starter. The Reds have literally said out loud, not privately, but out loud, that they must shed payroll, basically. And so if you're like, hey, I'll take that bad contract off your hands, but you got to give me Sonny Gray or Luis Castillo, there's the workings of a deal there. So coming up next, we'll turn to the position player side. I didn't necessarily mean to even start with the pitchers because I think that the bigger need is actually on the position player side. So I'll talk about where those needs are and what the possible solutions are in just a minute. But first, this is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, usually, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. This is a game changer because you want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. Enter Built Bar. They've absolutely solved that problem. Most bars contain just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs to go along with 17 grams of protein. Go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, here we go. We are going to continue talking about the San Francisco Giants and what is going to happen when the lockout ends, because there is going to be a frenzy. Whether or not they're heavily involved is going to be crazy around Major League Baseball when the lockout ends, assuming there's at least 2 to 3 more weeks of lockout, which I would assume. And I've been pessimistic about when this thing gets done. I'm really looking forward to Saturday to see what the league proposes and what the players' response is. And if it's negative by the players, then I'm immediately pessimistic about the season starting on time. But if there's some kind of positive momentum that comes out of Saturday, then I have a little bit of optimism. So a lot is going to hinge on that, and we will be back on probably Monday, either Monday or Tuesday, to talk about what goes down over the weekend with these negotiations. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. It's Super Week brought to you by Get Upside, and there's no better place to get coverage of the big game than the Locked On NFL podcast. Locked On Bengals and Locked On Rams are in LA all week covering the big game. So anyway, getting back to the Giants, I think it's a given they need to add some kind of starting pitching, and it remains to be seen exactly how, but I think kind of higher end pitching than just signing a, Zach Greinke and calling it a day. I think that last year they had Webb and Gausman at the top, and if you lose Gausman and suddenly kind of DeSclafani and Wood are slotting in right behind a somewhat unproven or mostly unproven Logan Webb, even though I believe in Logan Webb very strongly, he's still young and unproven. And if suddenly DeSclafani and Wood slot in right after him, that's a much different looking rotation than it was having Gausman at the top. And so I'll be watching to see what they end up doing. And on the position player side, of course, they lose Buster Posey to retirement. So they've gone from being one of the very top teams at the catcher position to potentially being one of the worst. Projection systems have them as being the worst, but of course there's a high degree of variance with a Joey Bart type player, right? Because the projections are down on him, but we all know he's got the pedigree and the potential to be better than the projections. So it's a big position of doubt about what kind of performance you're going to get. There's a big range, but I lean more towards the negative end of that range simply because of Joey Bart's approach not really matching what this team is looking for offensively. And we saw what it can look like when he made his major league debut in 2020. It can look really, really bad if it doesn't work out. But anyway, so you lose that right-handed bat in Posey in the middle of your lineup. And then, of course, the Giants acquired Kris Bryant in the middle of the season, and he naturally played pretty much every day, moved over the diamond a little bit, third base a little bit, mostly in the outfield. So I think that they continue to need at least one significant right-handed hitter. Your definition of significant may vary, but I mean, because they get the most out of guys, right? Like Darren Ruff is a right-handed hitter. When he was signed to a minor league deal coming out of Korea, not a lot of people expected him to become what he's become. And so, you never know when they bring in a player exactly what the production is going to be. And they have gotten more out of players than is typical. But at the same time, there's a lot of quality right-handed hitters remaining. And also, I keep saying this, but Andy Baggerly talked to Farhan Zaidi, Giants president of baseball operations, about Seiya Suzuki specifically, way back in, I think it was November. And Zaidi said something to the effect of, certainly we're going to be in that market. A right-handed hitter with good at-bat quality and power certainly fits our team. And so then we went in this deep dive looking at who are all the possible right-handed hitters with good at-bat quality. We have to decipher for ourselves exactly what that means, good at-bat quality. I have determined it means someone who doesn't chase and someone who makes good swing decisions, gets on base, isn't a wild hacking free swinger. And then, of course, power speaks for itself. But a lot of those guys signed. Some of them have not. I think we were at first looking at outfielders, but I would extend it. Zaidi didn't specifically say in the outfield, although now that I think about it, they don't have a lot of room in the infield. You've got Longoria slotted in at third, Crawford, of course, La Stella and Estrada kind of platooning at second for now, and then Brandon Belt. Where are you going to fit your other right-handed hitters? And so also Zaidi didn't say, I promise you we're going to sign an impact right-handed hitter with good at-bat quality and power. He just said, certainly we'll be in that market. And so when I look at who's remaining among this group, mostly the guys who stand out are Kris Bryant, Seiya Suzuki, and Tommy Pham. And I think that it's interesting that that's pretty much the full spectrum of cost and potentially performance. Bryant is very likely to cost the most. He's obviously a possibility to return. I think it depends, I've said this all along, on what his market ends up being. The predicted contracts for Bryant from Fangraphs, ESPN, and MLB Trade Rumors have a huge range. ESPN predicted 5 years, $90 million. Fangraphs predicted 8 years, $200 million. So just a huge, enormous range there. And I think if he ends up kind of being in the 590 range, certainly I think the Giants would be in that market. But for Seiya Suzuki, he probably falls in the middle. And the average prediction based on those three sources was 4.3 years at about $11 million per year. So 444, 555, somewhere in that range. And then, of course, there's a posting fee on top of that would add about another 10 million or so. But I think that he probably makes the most sense. He's the middle ground here. And there's just a lot to like about Seiya Suzuki. He is patient. He does have power. He's kind of a prototypical right fielder. He's got a big arm, and there's a lot of intrigue. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of intrigue there, and that's a very reasonable contract, especially if Bryant ends up around $200 million and Suzuki's about $50 million. Maybe you get better production out of Suzuki for, a quarter of the overall cost. Who knows? And then Tommy Pham kind of slept on a little bit here. I've always been a fan of Tommy Pham's game. And if you look at last season, the overall results didn't seem to be there. He only hit 229, but he managed a 340 on base thanks to a robust 14% walk rate. And the power was mediocre, a 154 isolated power. But the StatCast data suggests that he should have been better than his actual results. And if you look at kind of the underlying metrics, walk rate, 95th percentile, chase rate, 98th percentile. We're talking about a guy with good at-bat quality, right-handed hitter. Maybe the power's not going to wow you, but he also runs the bases well. The one thing is that we're probably maybe looking at a below average and possibly significantly below average defensive player. But that hasn't seemed to bother the Giants in the past. Talking about Wilmer Flores, Donovan Solano, Tommy La Stella, Darren Ruff, Alex Dickerson, right? They seem to not really believe that defense is as important as some metrics like wins above replacement is factoring in some kind of value for defense. It could be that the Giants have something on this where they don't believe defense is quite as important as some of these other sources do. And it's hard to argue with the results. With less than stellar defenders in a lot of places, the Giants did manage 107 wins. But overall, they were airtight. They didn't really make mistakes. They just weren't the most rangy team. So I don't know. To me, Seiya Suzuki makes the most sense of those three. But it is telling that there's only three that are really jumping off the page as those right-handed outfielders with patience and power, basically. But you've also got Nick Castellanos in the mix. I didn't include him because he is kind of a free swinger, but certainly you've got power, but you've also got those same defensive questions. And some of the predicted contracts are north of $100 million for a guy who's arguably a DH. I think that there is a question about whether that's a good buy or not. Although some of the other predictions were much lower, like ESPN predicted 3 years, $54 million. That's much more reasonable. So coming up next, we'll continue this discussion. There are other players who weren't outfielders that we can talk about. We'll just kind of go through some of the remaining free agent possibilities. Maybe we'll switch to some left-handed hitters, and maybe that helps us figure this thing out, because otherwise it's a little bit hard to find the pieces to put the puzzle together. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs right up to the big game in just a couple of days. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right along with live real-time updates of current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, here we go. We are going to wrap up our conversation of the frenzy post lockout. And I mentioned starting pitcher trade candidates, by the way, and position player trade candidates are always a possibility as well. It's just a little bit harder to figure out who might be available and what a trade might look like with position players versus, teams like the Reds are signaling they want to cut payroll. I just think that where the Giants have needs position player wise, I don't necessarily see as strong of fits as they have on the starting pitcher side of things with the Reds and the A's. But of course, there are trade possibilities that, with every single team, in theory, you can always make a trade for anybody if you give up enough. So it's really hard to say who's available and who's not. But just kind of continuing the conversation where we left it off, talking about these outfielders, that's pretty much it. I don't really see Jorge Soler as a great option. So he's the only other name I have listed here as right-handed outfielders who somewhat meet that criteria that Zaidi was talking about. Now, if we switch it to the infield or if we look at left-handed hitters, the possibilities open up. There's, of course, Carlos Correa lurking. I just don't really see the fit. I think it would be great. I mean, if he could come in and play third base and you pay him $300 million, cool. But I don't really see that happening. Like it or hate it, I just don't really see that happening. Freddie Freeman is out there, but again, the Giants don't have a need at first base right now with Brandon Belt returning. Trevor Story is interesting. There was a report recently that he prefers to sign with a team that would play him at shortstop and that he's not really interested in switching positions. I don't know how much truth there is to that report. Sometimes these things come out of nowhere and they prove to be completely false. And if you offer him $200 million, he'll probably play catcher for you. So I just don't know how much I read into that. I like Trevor Story, athletic, power, but again, kind of a free swinger, not really known for that great at-bat quality that I think the Giants would be looking for. Kyle Schwarber is out there, but he's a lefty. I'm not sure he has a position. But with the DH very, very likely coming to the National League, Schwarber could make some sense for a team like the Giants. Anthony Rizzo, same problem as Freddie Freeman, wrong position. I mean, the Giants don't really have a need at first base. Kyle Seager, don't really see it there. Michael Conforto makes a lot of sense for me as a left-handed outfielder with good at-bat quality and power. So if he was right-handed, I would be circling him in red ink saying that this is what Zaidi's talking about. And yeah, I mean, he's coming off a year much like Tommy Pham, where the overall numbers don't look great, but the underlying numbers suggest that he should have been better than the actual results. I see Conforto as a strong possible fit, maybe a guy looking for a bounce-back contract. I'm not sure coming to San Francisco as a left-handed hitter is where you want to come if you're looking to rebuild some value. So maybe it's not the most realistic, but if he's simply looking for the biggest contract he can get right now, maybe the Giants give it to him. He's young enough. I mean, he's only 28. He turns 29 on March 1st, but still, outfielder, good at bat quality, power, everything the Giants are looking for there, but doesn't have handedness in his favor, as the Giants said they were looking for a righty there. Moving on, that's really pretty much it. Nelson Cruz is out there, but he's certainly not a defensive player. He's going to be a DH for you. So the strongest fits to me are probably Seiya Suzuki, Tommy Pham, Nick Castellanos, and Kris Bryant. It's just going to depend on what those contracts are. And then, of course, trade possibilities abound. There were quite a few guys I thought that would be fits as it related to what Zaidi said. Chris Taylor, Mark Canha, arguably Starling Marte. I like Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. But those guys all signed with other teams. I'm not panicking about that by any means. I'm just very interested to see what ends up going down when the lockout ends with the Giants. I do think they'll be among the more active teams. I'm not promising a big name, but I'm saying they're not done. Currently, their payroll sits at about, where is it? It sits at about 123 million, which is significantly down from where it was even just last year. So I will be interested to see what that final number is. If it's significantly down from where it was in recent years, they better have a great season. If they struggle and they didn't really spend money, I will fairly criticize them. But the offseason is not over. We still have to see what they do. And then ultimately, it all, to me, depends on how the performance is on the field. So anyway, we'll be back on Monday or Tuesday talking about this critical meeting between the league and the players over the weekend, with the league expected to make some major concessions, maybe not major, but serious concessions on core economics issues. So much is going to hinge on that. So I can't wait to be with you next week to talk about it. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. Have a great weekend. I can't wait to be with you again next week. And as always, stay locked on Giants.